Alrighty, well, I'm getting ready to leave in a little while to go to work. I've got some work today. Going to be grinding down some stumps, which is always a miserable job, but it's a paying job, so it's all good. You know, it's a paying job, so it's all good. I'm going to keep my glasses on, and I'm going to be turning my head away frequently because those freaking pieces of stump come up in your face. But anyway, it's good, honest work, and it's a job, so I don't mind. Anyway, I'm going to tell you a story, though, about some friends of mine. A friend of mine who had a scrapyard outside of Perth there by the name of Cliff Kelford. The Kelford family is pretty well known in the Perth area. If you ever travel to Perth, Ontario, Canada, and you're standing in a room anywhere and you say the name Kelford, if there's other people around, probably most of them will know that name anyway, you know. There'd be very few that wouldn't, and chances are the ones who don't are like you. They're from out of town. But that'd be the reason they don't know. Anyway, back in the old days, though, when the Kelford family first came up around this area, because they kind of come from up north there, you know, and a bunch of them came down here to settle. And when Cliff was just a little boy, they came here. And, of course, Cliff had brothers, too, and stuff. And anyway, the father's name was Sam. Sam Kelford was my friend Cliff's father. I knew Sam Kelford. I knew him pretty well, actually. He was a blacksmith, very talented man, one of those old-time jack-of-all-trades, you know, could fix just about anything you can think of. If it was broke, he could fix it. If he couldn't get the part, he could make the part to fix it, or whatever, you know. I mean, he was a blacksmith, and he was a mechanic, and he was a farmer, and had a lot of different things going on anyway. And Sam, he lived to be quite old. When I knew him, he was an old man already, you know. And I had a 1947 Dodge car, big Dodge four-door sedan, and I used to take it out there sometimes when it was broken, and I'd work on it in the shop. And of course, sometimes, you know, well, pretty much all the time, when you get into it, when I get into fixing one thing, I'd find 3 other things that also needed to be fixed. You know how it is. You get into something like that, just like fixing up an old house or whatever. You think you're addressing one problem, and you find that no, you're addressing 4 or 5 problems is what you're addressing. The problem you could see isn't the only problem. Once you start uncovering things, you find out, okay, well, it turns out that I've got this, that, and the other thing also to take care of. Anyway, so sometimes I spent a lot more time in that shop than I thought I was going to be spending in there, because I'd think I got a job that's going to take me an hour, and then I'd find that, no, I've got 2 days worth of work here, you know, because of this and that and the other thing that I'd find when I got into the first job. Anyway, Sam ended up, he took a stroke in his late 80s, I think. I can't recall exactly how old he was, but he was in his really late 80s or his early 90s when he passed away. But he took a bad stroke anyway, and it kind of crippled him up, kind of paralyzed him on one side, and it also blinded him in one eye. And, you know, he was a tough old geezer, though. He was nice man. You couldn't ask for a nicer man, you know, but he was tough. He was tough in a good way, though. And I'm going to tell a little story that my old friend Tom Kerr told me about Sam. Sam is a younger man, anyway, back when Tom knew Sam back in the 40s and 50s. But anyway, Sam, he was also kind of a woodworker and stuff. Like I say, he was a jack of all trades, really, and he was good at anything he did, he was good at. And one of the things he used to do is he used to make hardwood axe handles. He had a vertical lathe, or a standing lathe, which is basically, it goes along the wall, basically, and it's tall, but it don't come out from the wall very far. and you can put your axe handles or whatever you're doing, your raw material in, and you can do several of them at a time, one over top of another. And you can set it up that it'll make several of them at a time, basically. And it's just a thing that goes up the wall. I know I'm not doing a great job explaining it. If you ever saw one, you'll know what I mean. If you haven't saw one, then you're probably still saying, what's this guy talking about? But anyway, it was a lathe, and everybody knows what a lathe is pretty much, for turning wood or metal or whatever to get the shape that you want. Anyway, Sam, he had this vertical lathe that he made his axe handles on. Well, Sam took this real bad stroke. Buggered him up pretty bad anyway. He was in the hospital for quite a while. And of course, by the late 90s when this stroke happened, like I say, he was in the late 1990s that I was out there fixing the car. And when Sam had his stroke, they wouldn't let you smoke in the hospital anymore. Well, Cliff's wife, Georgina, went in to visit Sam, and they had tea together. They asked for the nurses could bring them some tea, and they had tea together. And Sam was laying in his bed there, sipping on his tea. And he says to Georgina, he says, he said, would it go real good with this tea right now? He said. And Georgina said, no. She said, what would that be? And he says, a cigarette. He was a smoker, Sam was, that's what he said, would it go real good with this tea right now? A cigarette, but of course he couldn't have one because he weren't allowed to do that anymore in the hospital. But anyway, he came home, and he spent the summer basically in a lawn chair, sitting outside his house, bored out of his mind, wanting to do stuff, but people didn't want him doing anything. They were concerned about him, they didn't want him getting hurt, or they were trying to tell him it was time for him just to take it easy. You worked hard all your life. It's time to just take it easy now. Anyway, his youngest son, Willie George, Bill, but we all called him Willie George. Willie George used to really worry about him. Willie George did body work on vehicles out there in the shop, which was right across from Sam's house. And Willie George was forever after Sam to stop, before he gets himself into trouble. Before he gets himself hurt or whatever. Well, Sam, he sat in that lawn chair all summer. Didn't like it one bit. You could tell he didn't like it, but he did it. He knew that was expected of him, and he did it. And in the fall of the year, I was in there again with my old Dodge, doing something with it. And Sam was in there, and he had the old vertical lathe going. And he's making axe handles. Well, Willie George came in, and, understandably so. This isn't to knock Willie George or anything. Willie George always had the best intentions. And Willie George went after Sam in a big way. He said, what on earth, what are you doing? You shouldn't be doing this. You're not well enough to be doing this. You need to stop. He told him that. What are you doing? And Sam just looked over at Willie George, and he said, I've got back orders for axe handles. Before I took my stroke, he said, I took those orders, and I gave my word to the people that they would have their axe handles. When I took the order, I was given my word that they'd get their axe handles. And he said, and God damn it, they're going to have their axe handles. He said, I got to fill these orders. Those people are going to have their axe handles. Well, Willie George knew what he was beat anyway, so he just went off and did his own thing. He grumbled a little bit, and he went off and did his own thing. And Sam spent the afternoon making his axe handles. There, so that all the people that ordered them, so he could keep his word and deliver the axe handles for all the people who ordered them. And anyway, he did that. That was his last day of work. He passed away. I can't remember now exactly when, but it was shortly thereafter. It was a matter of days or a week or something. And he was gone. But see, that bothered him. He needed to keep his word. He had promised that. Now, nobody expected him to make the axe handles. He was 90 years old, and he had had a stroke. He blind in one eye, dragging one leg around behind him when he walked. Nobody expected that man to make them the axe handles. Or not like anybody was going to say, you know, that son of a bitch, I ordered an axe handle and he never delivered. You know, there was nobody going to do that, not unless they were a real asshole. You know, who would do that? Anybody that would do that would hold him to his word under those conditions probably wouldn't be a very reasonable person. But the thing is, it bothered him, you know. He had to keep his word. He couldn't leave. I think he knew he was leaving this world, and he couldn't leave it not having kept his word. And so that's why he said to Willie George, he said, I promised people these axe handles, and God damn it, they're going to have them. You know, I'm going to keep my word. I gave my word when I took those orders, and I'm going to keep it. Anyway, it goes to show the caliber of man he was, anyway, you know, that he had to keep his word. That's all there was to it. Anyway, I'm going to tell you a funny story now that Tom Kerr told me, my old friend Tom Kerr, who was a young man back in the late 1940s. He was born in 1932, so he was like in his teens and so on, in the late 40s after the war, and a young man. And he told this story anyway. They used to have dances up in there was an upper floor in the old barn that was used as a shop. The barn, that place burnt down a few years back, burnt right to the ground. But back in the 40s, the old barn had an upper floor to it. Still did. I mean, it had an upper floor to it until it burnt down. But, of course, the upper floor had become disused over the years, but it was still there. I was up there a few times. I saw it. Well, apparently, they used to have dances for the local youth back in the 40s and 50s. Sam would hold these dances. Anyway, Tom told me this story. He was at one of these dances, and a couple of young guys, be around Tom's age, that were nursing a grudge against each other. I don't know what the grudge was about. Probably a girl. Usually it's about a girl, you know, but I don't know that. I don't think Tom knew exactly. If he did know, he didn't say. But he told the story. These two young guys that were nursing a grudge against each other, they started squaring off the fight. And if you're a man of a certain age, including my age, because we used to get into street fights and whatnot when I was young too. I think we were the last generation to be that way, but we did. You see it. If you're standing there and a couple of guys are squaring up the fight, you know. You can just see it because you've been there yourself, so you recognize it. Anyway, Sam spotted it right off. And he didn't want any trouble. You get the police coming out there and everything, and then next thing you know, there's no more dances. It all gets shut down. The community becomes outraged. They say that's a trouble spot. Don't be going around there, And then the family would get a bad reputation. The dances would get shut down. It'd be a whole big thing. And so the last thing that they needed was any trouble out there during these dances. So Sam, he went over and he grabbed each of them by the arm. Sam was a powerful man, he swung a hammer and beat metal into whatever shape he wanted it to be in. This was not somebody you wanted to fool around with. If he took a notion to pick you up and put you somewhere, you were going to end up wherever he put you, and you weren't going to have any say over it. Anyway, Sam grabbed each of them by the arm, and very sternly, very calmly but very sternly, he let them know that there wasn't going to be any trouble around there. He wasn't going to have that. He told them they better put their differences aside, at least for tonight. There wasn't going to be any fighting around there. But he said, if you two guys are determined to make this place a roughhouse, then I'm going to let you know right now, I'm just the man to make it happen. I'm just a man to do it. And they knew it. Yeah, they knew that he wasn't going to have that at his place, and so they calmed down anyway. They knew if anybody was going to be doing violence, it wasn't going to be them, you know. They might be on the receiving end of some, but they weren't going to be the ones inflicting it on each other or anyone else. And so they respected Sam too, I think, you know. So they just kind of said, yes, sir, understood, you know, and they went about their business. But now Sam was a very gentle man, you know. Sam didn't take it lightly to be aggressive in that way. But, you know, if you have to be, you have to be. And those two put him in a position where he had to be, so he was. But even at that, it was measured aggression. He didn't do any more than he had to do. You know, if they wanted to escalate it, it would escalate. But that wasn't, his goal was not to escalate it. His goal was to de-escalate it, which is what he did anyway. Anyway, that was Sam Kelford. Just thought I'd tell you that story anyway. It's kind of a neat story about an old fella that I knew when I was a younger man than I am now. And, yeah. Anyway, that's it. Good old Sam. Anyway, there you go, eh? Anyway, I always liked Sam an awful lot. I remember Sam had a little dog, Keisha. It was just a little tiny dog, almost looked like one of those dogs you see actresses keeping in their purses and stuff. Tiny little thing. And when I'd be out there working on my car, I got that I'd bring my lunch with me because I didn't take anything for granted. I thought, okay, I think I'm going to be at it for an hour, but this may turn into a day-long affair once I get started. And it often did. So I bring my lunch with me anyway, and I remember I used to always share my lunch with the little dog, Keisha. I'd be sitting in my car eating my lunch, and Keisha would come over, and I'd be throwing her down little bits of sandwich and stuff, you know. So Keisha got to be my lunch partner. Anyway, Sam used to get a kick out of that, you know. Keisha over there eating lunch with me. Anyway, that's it for now. We'll see you later. I hope you have a good day today. I'm planning to, so I hope you do too. Bye for now.